Hello and good day, everyone. Mark Wolf with emergency reporting here for our first virtual Thursday presentation of 2021. And we welcome everyone today. And we got a few things and some housekeeping we need to talk about. First of all, our topics for today, some of our NFIRS, or as I pronounce it, usually NFIRS hot topics, a few things that have cropped up recently. We want to get some education out to everyone. So that is the topic for today. With us today, myself, Mark Wolf, lead international trainer, James Angerett, regional trainer. We've got Greg Simmons, regional trainer, and Tom Lewis is a brand new enterprise training manager, is also lurking out there with us today and going to help us answer your questions. And speaking of questions, if you have questions today, please put them into the chat. We'll be happy to respond to all of them. And we do ask you to please stay on topic. As always, we want to mention that we have training opportunities for you. First of all, our virtual Thursday trainings, they're free. First Thursday at 1100 hours Pacific time every month, we make a presentation. We keep these highly focused and they last, generally speaking, about an hour. And we also record these, if you did not know that, and we take those recordings and we put them in to our knowledge base. There's a section in the knowledge base for webinars on demand, and you can visit them and listen to them whenever you might have some time if you can't attend them live and online with us. We do have online training available in 3-hour blocks. We can customize those to meet your needs, and we'd be happy to help you out with that. We do have on-site training opportunities and also regional training academies that we conduct across the country. Now, currently with all the travel restrictions due to COVID, some of those have not been able to take place. We've been able to do some limited things though. We're going to mention to you that we do have several regional training academies scheduled. However, some of them, especially these first two we're going to mention, may be canceled due to some of the travel restrictions and the date of them. So we have Jacksonville, Florida in April. Austin, Texas is scheduled for May. And again, those two may be canceled and we may do something else for them. We'll announce that later. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is scheduled for June 8th through 10. And Charlotte, North Carolina currently is scheduled for August 3rd through the 5th. And again, if you would like more information on those, you can go to the emergencyreporting.eventbrite.com website and take a look at the information there and register. And again, those first two, we may be going a different direction with those due to the COVID travel restrictions. Also, on our emergencyreporting.com website, if you want information on the different trainings that are available, you can go to the customer success page, the training and learning center, and learn about the regional training academies, on-site training, online training, and so forth. And you can also email us at training@emergencyreporting.com. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just jump into it here. I know everybody is busy, and we're going to not waste your time. I am trying to find my login page, which it's not cooperating whatsoever. So it'll be just one moment. And I found it, and we're bringing it up here now. I'm going to ask one of our other trainers online with me. Is my screen still sharing? Can you break in, please,
yes.
And let me know? Okay, perfect.
I can, yep, we see your welcome page, Mark.
All right, thank you. So one thing I want to mention before we get into the info section and information we're going to review today is in your control panel, you should have the ability to find some handouts. Those handouts that I put out there are very, very nice documents presented by the U.S. Fire Administrator and the NFIRS Program Office. First, there is the design document. We're actually going to visit that here in a little bit to show you one of the things that's information present there that relates to a NFIRS incident export. We've got the famous NFIRS reference guide, 512 pages for your reading pleasure. Everything you need to know about entering your incidents in the NFIRS system is available to you there. They have a nice document. It's called Coding Questions. If you have any questions about how you should code things, there's a pretty good section on coding mutual aid responses in that particular document that may be useful for you. I did place in there some of the NFIRS paper forms. In the event you need to use paper forms, you have those there in a PDF document, and you can print those out onto paper, and you can even split them up by pages and just print 1 or 2 pages of it if it's right for you. Then also there's a getting started with the eNFIRS guide that we're going to visit a little bit later for those folks that have to upload your NFIRS data directly to the U.S. Fire Administration. So the first place we're going to go and we're going to talk about some information is in the export section of the administration page. So if you have administration access, the administration module is all the way at the bottom of the module stack. And if you don't have it to access yourself, you can just follow along with me. I'm going to take you there. So on the admin page, this is most of the sections that are available, and we're going to focus on this one where my mouse pointer just went in the exports section. And one thing we're going to talk about first is the ability to send your data directly to the NFPA. I'm going to select that link for NFPA submission, and this is some information for you. Basically, there's been identified a couple items for, as we would call them, problems with getting data to the NFPA in a timely fashion. Basically, when you're submitting incidents, and the typical route is from the fire department to the state, you may submit them monthly or quarterly, and after the state acquires all that data across their jurisdiction, they roll it up to the U.S. Fire Administration, and eventually U.S. Fire Administration allows access to the folks at NFPA to that data. One of the big impacts of that is that there's such a delay in getting access to that data. So this is your way to help the NFPA out by sending your data directly to them. This is optional, and you should read this whole entire page, and I'll show you down here towards the bottom. If you want to participate in the program, and first of all, I want to mention too that emergency reporting was the first records management system to enable the direct submission of data to the NFPA. Now to do so, mouse click in the box next to I agree to export your data when you submit it to the NFPA, when you submit to NFIRS. Then at the bottom of the page, there is a button here that you will save this page, and that enables this system. Now, if I go back out to my admin page, you will see that I have it enabled. Now, once you enable this, if you choose to participate in this program, you don't have to do any more work. Whenever you do a NFIRS export, it will automatically be sent to the NFPA. And in the future, if you ever want to turn this off, which I need to do now because this is a training account, none of this data is real, we're going to go back in and unagree by unchecking the box and saving the form, and we're going to disable this. So it is optional again, and you can help the situation out by submitting that information directly to the NFPA so they get the information in a more timely fashion. So that's the first thing we want to talk about in the exports. Now we're going to go directly to your NFIRS 5.1 export link, and most of you, your page will look very similar to this. Now this account is set up that we're to submit the NFIRS data monthly, and this is what it would look like. And I'm going to talk in a little bit later about the time intervals. First thing we're going to talk about is who gets these emails. So whenever you do an export of your NFIRS data, it goes out via email to whoever is in this list at the bottom of the page. Now, a couple of these are my email address that it comes to, and I would recommend within your department that you have to have at least one, maybe two individuals to send your NFIRS data to locally. You may have an email address for a state office that collects this data, then they will upload it into the system. It's real important to keep that state email address in here so your data gets submitted to them in a timely fashion. Now, if you need to update a recipient or add a recipient, it's fairly simple. We have a link, says add a recipient. So we select it, we put in their title and their email address, select save, and you've got that added. Now, one thing we want to point out to you is that if you're doing updates to these email addresses, to the individuals that are going to get the export, if you need to add one, don't remove all of them or delete them before you add the new one. Go ahead and add the recipient or update one of these, and then clean it up by deleting someone that no longer needs to receive them. If you do delete all of them, the only way to add them back in is to contact our support team. So we're just going to save you a little bit of time by letting you know, please don't delete all of these. Update, add one that you need or two before you take the names off of the list here. So let's talk a little bit now again about the intervals for exporting your NFIRS data. In some cases, they will have their account will be set to weekly. Now, this is for the larger agencies. We have a couple of them that I know of. One is in Florida and one is here in Ohio that is set to weekly because they have a very, very high call volume, and there is a file size maximum for sending the data. So they need to have it set for weekly. Most people will have it set up like you see here, monthly. And then we have quite a few accounts specifically I'm familiar with in North Carolina and California specifically that are set to export on a quarterly basis. In some cases, it may be an on-demand export, and I don't have that page to show you, except it will look similar to, not that page, this page, sorry about that. It will look similar to this page, and it's on demand, and basically it will export any review call that was not previously exported. And the state I'm familiar with that has on-demand export is Tennessee. I'm not sure if there's any out there other than that do the on-demand. So let's go back to the admin page, and I'll also mention in a couple cases for a few states that the state goes in and grabs your NFIRS data for you. You do not have to do an export. Those states are Pennsylvania, North Dakota, and Wyoming. We have statewide contracts with all three of those, and they have direct access to pull the NFIRS data out of all the accounts in those states and handle it at their level. So typically, and a couple other things to mention about your exports specifically, there's a couple different ways that this may have to happen. In some cases, such as North Carolina and Texas, and I know there's other states out there, I believe California is this way too, when you do your export, it will go directly to your state fire marshal's office is typically where they go. In some states, they don't allow third-party vendors like emergency reporting or any others to submit data to them. So you have to send it to somebody in your department. They'll receive that email, and on that email, there will be a data file. That data file is your NFIRS data. What I recommend you do, if you're one of those departments that has to upload it yourself, when you receive those emails, take that data file and park it into a special folder you may have on your computer for your NFIRS data, just to keep a copy there, and then go log into their system and upload it to the state. And you may be in one of the cases that you need to upload it directly to Fema U.S. Fire Administration by logging into their site and uploading it directly to them. And I believe one of those states that needs to do that is Alabama. They don't collect that data at the state level. So one thing to remember, I'm going to jump back into this page to show you, is on your export, as long as you have all of your incidents reviewed for a particular month, it's actually only 4 mouse clicks to do your NFIRS export. And the one we're going to do is from September of 2020. Now remember, this is a training account. It gets sporadic information put into it, and we delete a lot of it periodically. However, you can see here, I have a 0 for not yet reviewed. So I have no incidents in incomplete or complete status. all 2 of them are reviewed. So I am able to export this. A couple rows above that in November, you can see I have 1 incident that's not reviewed, and I can't even select the radio button. So if you see a number here, you need to go out to your incident grid and find the incident or incidents that need to be set to reviewed status, and get that done. And then you come back into this page and export them. So let's go back to the home page. So let's say you're getting ready to do your import or export, excuse me, with that. And when we get to the home page, we're going to start counting mouse clicks to export your incidents. So first one is navigate to the admin module. It's number 1. Number 2, select NFIRS 5.1 export. Number 3, the radio button for that particular time period, whether it's month, quarterly. And then we're going to slide down here to the bottom of the page and select the 4th mouse click, our export button, and out goes the data. And there's only a couple incidents here, so very quickly we got to the summary page here telling us that we have sent that data to those 3 email addresses, including those incidents. So your incident list may be very much longer than that. And this is our actual receipt for this, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. Now what I want to do before we go back to the admin module, I'm going to go to the incidents page, and we're going to take a look at this. So what I did was just export these 2 incidents. Now you can see right below that where my mouse is now. For this particular call, this happened to be in July 2020. Take a notice how that delete button is grayed out. Right above it, there's no extra text here, but up here there is. That's the quickest way to know that that incident was exported, is that you first have to unlock it on this page. The difference will be if I go to this call in July and select it, and we go to the summary or exposure view, I can unlock it on this page. Now, if I go back to that grid on an exported call, you will see that I cannot unlock it. It's locked on this page. So what I have to do is first unlock it on the main grid. And now I could, if I needed to, go into it and edit the call. Let's go up and that's what it will look like. Get that done correctly for you. So now I could go in if I needed to edit this call. And that's going to get to one of the things that we're going to talk about right here is if we need to edit the call, how do we get the data sent back out? And I'll show you how to do that right now. We have to unlock it because we can't change it until we do so. And you have to have review privileges to be able to do this. Now I can go in and go into any of my incident pages, like Basic Info 5, for example, and add data to it. We'll just put a couple action taken codes in here. So like that, so I've updated it. I will go ahead and save that page. And now you will see if we go to the authorized page, this would include any data, any place in this incident report. Since I've unlocked a exported incident, I have this option. I'm going to highlight it blue for you. Right on this page, I can make the call available for re-export to the state or Fema, whomever it's going to, if I check that box. If I don't check the box, it will not make it available for an export again. So let's go ahead and check it to show you how we do this, and we're going to go ahead and review the incident. Take me a moment to go grab my password and set the incident to reviewed status, and I'll bet you my coworkers are rolling in laughter right now. Oh, I grabbed the wrong password, that's why. There we go, this one will work, I can guarantee it. And now this incident will go to reviewed status, And we will go back. Let's go out to the grid first so you can see that. That would be this call on September 1st, 2020. I edited data. It's set back to reviewed. So now if we go to the admin module, since I had that box checked, what it's going to allow me to do is to re-export it. So right now I've sent 2 calls in. I've got 1 call that needs to be exported. We can re-export that very, very simply just by performing that function. So let me check my notes here and mention also that we have seen, if anybody is out there with us today from Kansas, Kansas is having some difficulty and seeing some validation errors at their level, and they actually have put some information out that they have put a hold on any import data to their state system currently until that gets figured out. They're communicating with software vendors like emergency reporting, and we're looking into it to get that squared away for you so that you can go ahead and process your calls as you desire. So we're going to jump down now and talk about the export history. Go to that link, export history, and we will end up on this page. To discuss a little bit about this page, we're in the export history tab. So you can see here we've got a row of data. I did a export, this morning, and it happened to be for, actually those 2 are just the ones I did a little bit ago here. For September, we'll get the type of export. This is an NFIRS export. This gives us the time frame for that particular month. And you can see down here that we've got one in for March of 2020 that I sent in. Now over in these 3 columns, we have a few functions that we can do. So let's say you get information. This happens occasionally that your state or whomever did not get the information from the export. You can actually resend it right from this page. If you select resend, select yes, and you're going to resend that export. The email and the file is going to go back out with it. So you can do this yourself. We don't have to do that for you. You can. The next thing we're going to do is jump over here and talk about the download. If you've never seen a data file from the NFIRS, you can take a look at your data. So I selected to download that, downloaded it. We are going to go ahead and open that. Just kind of show you what this data looks like. And this is an NFIRS export file. Every call is represented on here. Now I think there's like 5 or 6 incidents in here. This information starts out with your FDID number, your state, the date of the call, incident number, and this is an important column to take a look at. This one starts with 1,000. The next row down is 1,005, then the 1010 row, and this is all the different data fields on those particular pages. So what I want to do for you now is to show you how to interpret this information on this page. So if we go in and find, this is one of those documents that's out there that's available to you. This is the NFIRS design document, and on page 138, you can see if we come down here, so this is row 1000, incident header. Row 1005, basic incident. 1010 is the incident address. And we'll slide on down here. Another common one to take a look at is your the 1040 row, which is the narrative. And then a couple of the other ones, I'm going to slide down to the next page, which is common to need to know occasionally, is what apparatus. It's the 1800 row. And then each individual can be in row 1810. So let me minimize this and we'll go in and take a look. So we're at the 1010 line, which I have highlighted blue. That's the incident address. And if we look down at the 1800 row, here's an apparatus, and then the 1810 rows right below that, where I'll just highlight it for that. That's personnel that was on that apparatus, and the next row down is a brand new incident. So that's how you can interpret these fields. This is called a caret separated value file. Every field is separated by the caret symbol. and that's how they read it. It has to be in an exact sequence or you will get a validation error on your data. That's how we can take a look at the actual data file. So that's important information for you there. So that is that data file and how to read it. And also that receipt that we looked at before is available to you. So if you need to go back and take a look, who got this information, you can select in the receipt column and you'll see that page where, you know, who got it, what email addresses was it sent to, and what incidents were exported. And that's a verification tool as well to see what went out when you did that particular export. So I'm going to take a break right now and ask my coworkers if there's anything that we need to stop and talk
Mark,
about.
I do have two good questions for you. The first one was, you mentioned earlier about the size limit and the requirements that some agencies, send it out, they meet that size limit. Do you know what the exact size limit is?
5 megabytes.
Okay. And the second question I got for you is about that file. Is it a .txt file?
Yes, it is. When it gets sent out, it is a .txt file. And what I have is, I'm moving some things around on my other screen. Let me hope I can see this if I drag it over here. It's not allowing me to do that. But it's a text document, .txt. That's what you get from emergency reporting. Absolutely. Anything else then, James?
No, sir. That's all we had for now.
Okay.
Mark, there is one more from Brian up in North Dakota. He was wondering about the NFPA submission. Do you know, since North Dakota grabs their data, does he still have the ability somehow to do the electronic submission to NFPA?
He would have to look on his admin page, and from what I can recall, the answer to that is no. I don't think they can, since they're not doing an export. Does that answer your question? I'd have to take a look. If you can go to your admin page in that export section, if you have a link to it, then you will. But I think you have to have an actual export function to be able to do that.
Mark,
Hey, Mark, it's Tom. I believe you're correct on that.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Was somebody else trying to break in there too?
Yeah, that was me, Mark.
Okay.
Any of the state administrators that are pulling this data, do you know if any of them send the file to NFPA?
I do not know that answer, no.
Maybe they could reach out to their state fire administrator's office and see.
Sure. Every state has a program manager. That'd be the person to contact. Absolutely. One item I'm going to mention now, I'm going to actually pull over a document. We talked about resubmitting calls, and we do have a state that we produced a document. Now this is in the knowledge base. So if you're in Ohio and you need to resubmit an incident, they have given us this information. It's in a knowledge base article written by Katie Hines about resubmitting the incident. Now, most states, when they get a resubmittal, it just overwrites the previous data. Ohio doesn't like that. They want information that's a transaction type changed in it. So if you read this knowledge base article, it tells you exactly what you need to do that. Essentially what you have to go into that text file that we were just talking about. And I believe it's this column right here is that you need to put some data into it. I was incorrect. It's this column right to the right of the line number in between those two carets. You have to put a change transaction. And I think it's a character 1 as it illustrates here that you have to put in every row of that to submit that to the state of Ohio. So you'd export it to yourself via email and then upload that file, but you have to edit it in this fashion or they won't accept it because they don't allow the incident data to be overwritten like most states do. So that's a little bit of information for Ohio specifically. If you need to resubmit an incident report. And we get a common question as trainers out there, well, what if I added a narrative or I changed my narrative or whatnot? Well, a narrative is actually not required by the NFIRS system. I know it is included in the export. However, if the only thing you do is to update your narrative, I would simply not check that box and review the incident so you can pull data from it and not resubmit it. But if you update any of the coding fields in there, then most certainly that is an instance where you need to check the box and then re-import the information. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is importing data. Some of you may have that need to do so. So every customer has this ability, should anyway, in the imports and NFIRS import tool that we have built for you. This thing will step you directly through that process. There's 5 steps to it. We're going to go through that in just a moment here. One thing I want to point out to you, if you are importing NFIRS data, I'm highlighting this blue and we'll talk about it, is there's 4 lists on the admin page that you need to visit if you import data. And the reason for that is if you have a name on an incident report, for example, that is in that data file and it has their, let's say, middle initial in it, and in your account you don't have a middle initial for that individual, you could add an additional user into your account. Same thing with apparatus. If you have an engine 1 and in your apparatus list in your account it's E-1, but in your other NFIRS data that you're importing it's E1 without a space or a dash, it will create an additional unit. The other list that you need to look at is stations and also ranks, because it can add, if there's any difference in how it's noted in the ID, it can add additional ones. So just want to take a look at those 4 lists: personnel, apparatus, ranks, and station after you do an import. So let's go ahead and we'll step through this particular process. We're going to select next and we're going to go grab the data. So we're going to go select our file, and in my system here, I got to go find it. Just take a moment. And as always, sometimes I have a little bit of problem finding the file. Here it is right there. There's what I'm looking for. And we're going to import this file right here. This is preceded by the FDID number and the month and year. So we're going to bring that file in and the system will validate your data. Now, if you're importing the data and it comes in from a different vendor, you may find some errors in it. It's pretty typical to find some of those. If you find errors in it, you can fix them yourself if you know what you're doing with those different lines, but you have to use a program called Notepad++ to do so. Now you can see at the top of the page, we do allow .txt documents, .inc, and .dep documents. So we went in and this validation tool said the file was valid. If it found errors, it would list them by line, and you can go into each row and then correct them. It could be very, very tedious depending on what that error is. So we've got that data validated. We're going to go on to the next page where we can map users. So in this particular case, if everybody was mapped correctly and we didn't have any issues. If it found names that were out of sequence, like no middle initial in that, we could take the opportunity right here and map them so that it doesn't create any extra people. So we don't have any issues with user mapping, and the next thing we're going to do is go to the import, select import, and we'll bring that data in. And you can see I've got 1 incident successfully imported. Now, an actual incident, the data for each incident takes up very, very little space in your document. The max document size we can import is 5 megabytes. So if you're got a high call volume department, you may have to break your incidents down into month or quarter segments before you try to import them. And once we get done with that, we're going to select finish, and to show you the results of that, we're going to go back out to the incident grid, and we'll come down here and find this incident 2020 100,000 12, and that incident is imported. Now, one thing we like to mention about imported calls, especially if you're bringing them in from a different records management system, is you can import them and everything will be fine. But if you need to change data in this, if you unlock it, you'll be subject to today's validation standards. So in this case, I'm going to unlock it from this page. We give you this little warning right here. So it's going to be brought up to the current validation standards in your ER account. We typically see this kind of issue with custom questions specifically, or in some cases, it may not have any personnel in an import file. And there's a rule, there's a validation rule. You need at least one person and one apparatus on the call. So when we went ahead and took that call and we unlocked it, we'll go to this page and unlock it here, and we should see probably that there are some validation errors in this particular call. And I set it up like this just to show you that you do have some issues with unlocking imported calls. In this particular case, on this page is the new COVID-19 special studies. And that's what we're talking about in when you're unlocking these imported calls. Now, if you do import calls and you need to provide a copy of this document for somebody, you don't have to go into the actual document itself. You do not have to unlock it. If you go to the summary view page, just simply select the print, or if you need to look at it yourself, print it. And it'll throw it out here to another tab and you can take a look at the data. That avoids unlocking the incident and having problems putting data into it and being able to set it back to reviewed status. So that's the process for importing data. So let's talk about a few common errors that we see. And the first one I'm going to talk about, we can just go into this incident here. We're going to go to the Basic Info 2 page. And from this page, we're going to jump to the Basic Info 3 page. And I always preach to use the next and back buttons. When we select next and we page our way through the incident report, selecting next, the information is presented in a logical fashion and we enter it in a logical format that reduces issues with validation errors. And you can see in this particular case, the issue I have on this page is my zone, because that happens to be a field that does not get sent out in an export file, nor is it present in an import file. So let me go to that. We'll get our NFIRS property classification as well and move on to the next page again by using the next button and paging through the incident report. That's a very, very common issue. What you can do, some people don't know this, so I'm kind of hesitant to tell you. However, you can navigate from page to page by using the red light, green light buttons at the bottom of the module button here. So I can jump right to the narrative page from wherever I am. Now remember, before you do this, a couple points. First, the narrative is the only page that auto-saves, or a PCR if you have a PCR in your particular incident report. No other page like the Basic Info 1, none of the structure fire pages or any of those autosave. So save your data before you jump around. And also consider the fact that you may get validation errors because depending on data you put in here, it's going to change requirements over there. The U.S. Fire Administration call those relational edits. I call them validation rules. Some people call them business rules. But our validation tool is always out there working, and you can defeat it if you jump around page by page. I don't recommend it. Go through your incident report, selecting the next button and putting your data in the incident report. That's kind of a common error to see. And then what happens is sometimes a data field will disappear in a page. It's got data in it that shouldn't because of a selection you made elsewhere. And that validation error is still present and you basically can't find it. Okay, we're going to go to another common error that we see, and it's for a building fire here. I'm going to go to this particular incident. We'll go ahead and select it. And we're going to go into the primary incident. And we're going to go to the fire module. In the fire module, and it's not the common error isn't on the fire 1 page. It happens to pop up when we go to the fire 2 page. So I'll select next and go there, and it's this box right here. So if I check this box that the fire spread was confined, or the fire was confined to the object of origin, that creates additional requirements further down in the incident report. So let me go ahead and save this page, and you'll see that it's showing me a validation error on the fire page 2, but the actual issue is going to come up on the structure fire 2 page. So when I go to it, you will see that I have this selected, confined to room of origin. This has to match in the fire spread field. It has to match to confine to object of origin. Let me save the page, and you'll see that red light in the page 2 of the fire module will disappear. Oh, but it didn't. I've got another red light now. And what happens with this is, and this is part of the problem, if I go to the authorized page, we'll see that we have actually material contributing most flame spread cannot be selected. And if we go back to this page, you'll see that I have that information selected here. When I check that box now and save this page, that error should go away. And you can see that whole section disappears. There may be a time where that disappears, but you still have a red light here. That's because you may have put data into it. Let me change this to room of origin. And it won't let me do that either. Let me go back to this page, and I will uncheck the box, save it. And now when we come back here, you may have put data down into one or both of these fields down here. And that's kind of hidden from view, and you won't know what it is that you have data there. And that's why you got those red lights out there. So you may have to go back in to your incident report and deselect on the fire 2 page, this box right here, before you can actually see. I'm going to just go ahead and jump to that page. In the structure fire 2 page, does that match? And is there data down here that shouldn't be? You may need to clear that data out, in other words, or uncheck that checkbox right there for the material contributing most to flame spread. That is a very common error that we see several support tickets on every month. Basically, we get those routinely.
Hey,
So
Mark, it's Tom. It's Tom.
Yes.
So that is so excellent. You mentioned that one because it is a nuisance. It's an NFIRS validation rule, and it drives all of us crazy. So I put the link to the KBA into the chat. So great job mentioning that particular nuance of the system.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I'm not going to be able to demonstrate this next common error that we've seen, and this was an issue on our side of things. You may have submitted some incidents that you exported prior to right about November 17th that had a civilian casualty noted. We had a error crop up, and you may have from your state, you may have been able to submit the information to your state, and then they gave you a note back saying, hey, we have a validation error. So, and it has to do with civilian casualty. So if that's the case, you have incidents from prior to November 17th that you have exported, you got a kickback from your state on it having to do with a civilian casualty. Here's the process to fix that. Simply go into the incident, unreview it, set it to incomplete, and then re-review it on the authorized page, and you want to re-export that. So check the box that I want to re-export it, go to the admin module, the NFIRS 5.1 export, re-export it. If it goes directly to your state, you're done. If you have to upload it, then you'll grab that file and upload it. That issue's been resolved, but you have to go through those steps to correct the issue on the data you sent to your state. So one of the other issues that we see once in a while that crops up, I'm going to jump to the basic info 2 page. And it's got to do with the cause of ignition. Just to point out to you that there are 3 selections in this particular list that triggers the arson module. If we select intentional, let me save the page, you'll see the arson module. If we select cause under investigation, we'll have the arson module. And then if we select cause undetermined after the investigation and save that, you'll see that the arson module is still present. So where does the error come in? The error comes in is that when we have data in here, some type of cause of ignition, we've got the arson module up, and we may have even went into it and put some data into it. Now the minimum data for this is just the street or highway name of the agency. But let's say you put an agency name in, maybe you work with your police department on these. We'll just leave it at that data there. Let's save it. You'll see we'll get a green light here. But let's say down the road a little bit, you go in and say, well, okay, well, we're going into the basic 2 page, and we're going to change this from intentional, cause under investigation, or cause undetermined after investigation to unintentional, and we save that page. Now you can see the arson page disappeared, but there's still data in those fields, and that can throw an error when you roll that up to your state. The resolution to it is simply go into the basic info 2 page, select one of those fields, such as intentional, bring up the arson page, and just go in and remove the data if this is the case. Save it, and you'll get this validation error on the arson 1 page. However, there's no data in it now. If we go back in now and change it to unintentional and we send that out, we won't get any errors thrown back at us because there's data in a field that's not supposed to be there. And that are some of the common errors that we have. Do we need to take a pause and answer any questions, guys?
Hey, Mark, it's Tom. I've got a question for you that I think may be what Brian's asking from Arnegard, North Dakota. So what if you've got old data, NFIRS data that you want to import, and you have personnel in those incidents that are no longer with your organization? So they'll pop up on the page where you want to map people, but there's no one to map it to. How would you solve that? I mean, I've got something I've done in the past, but I want to see what your solution is. And I think that's what Brian was referring to in one of his questions.
Okay, so Brian, the case would be we're doing that export. We don't have anybody to map it to. So what it will actually do, so let's say Joe Smith was on your department many years ago. You're importing some incidents, his name is attached to it. There's nothing to map it to there. So typically what happens, they end up on the personnel list. So you find them on your personnel list, and then the proper thing to do is to come in and archive them. So that's one of the 4 lists that you need to look at after you do an incident import, is to archive anyone that popped up on this list as an active member that is no longer with you. And you archive them by selecting the trash can all the way over to the right, and then select archive, and they'll end up in your archive list.
Option number 2, especially if you have dozens or hundreds of people, maybe, then that's usually rare. But if you, I've had agencies where they would have dozens, and so in lieu of having to do one deletion at a time, you could create a ghost person, a mock person in the personnel list, map all of those people to that person, and then archive that person. So you only have to do it once. That's option number 2. Absolutely.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate that. Okay, there's a couple things we're going to, the boss wanted, this was our, the support team boss, customer success manager, Kim Enan, wanted us to review a few things. If you're involved in entering data or if you actually have to upload your data directly to the FEMA U.S. Fire Administration website. So we're going to look at a few tabs from their system now. So first of all, it's fairly simple to get to. If you just search, do a Google search on NFIRS, you can find these pages quite quickly. The National Fire Incident Reporting System, this is their main page. And we're going to scroll down a little bit and show you that we do have some links down here. Support and documentation, some reporting guidelines. This is program manager at the state and fire department level. The actual NFIRS website that you would log into if you need to upload your data to NFIRS. Vendor information, which, we are a vendor, so we have a login to that. And there's some general information about the NFIRS site available on this particular page. And you'll see that we have the COVID-19 special study that was pushed out earlier in 2020. And there's all kinds of data available for you down here and helps pages. So that's the first page that we're going to visit. Now, another very, very important page to visit, talk about in here, I think it's more important than the previous page, is we've got some training and coding help available on this page. You can get to this from the previous page. Anyway, they have some videos that are available on here. Now, one of the things that's changed at the federal level is the process for uploading your incidents has changed a little bit. We're going to look at a document in a few minutes about this. However, they are working right now. I was just recently in contact with them, and they are producing a tutorial on importing your data into the FEMA website. And we're going to take a look at that website in just a moment. So they're going to be adding that here very, very soon. Also down here, we have available through the National Fire Academy, they're in Emmitsburg, Maryland, is on-campus classes whenever they would start those up, off-campus classes on everything you need to know about NFIRS. And also, here's the important one for you folks online, is there's a NFIRS 5.0 self-study program. All you do is take a mouse click on this and you can go in and learn everything you need to know about the NFIRS system. And available on this page is that coding questions guide that I mentioned before. The last one they published was back in 2016. They have an earlier one, I think it was published in 2014, but all the coding questions from the 2014 guide were rolled into the 2016 guide with a few extras. And the last thing to talk about on this page, informational for you, is NFIRS grams. When I was still working, I got these. You can subscribe to it, and whenever they produce one of these, they'll email it to you, and there's a list of all the ones that are available to you. So specific information about entering NFIRS data, all about NFIRS is on this particular page, learning about it. Don't forget, we put those documents into the handouts for you. You can grab those, download them, and there'll be a great information for you. Now, the third page we're going to go to, and we're also going to look at a document here in a moment, because there's been some issues with this, is if you have to upload your data directly to FEMA, the U.S. Fire Administration, this is the page that you need to go to. So in the chat, or I'm actually not going to do, I'm going to ask one of my coworkers to grab that URL, and can you post it in the chat for me so everybody would have this. It does take a username and password. So where do you get that? Well, what you have to do is contact your state program manager at your state level. They have the ability to generate a username and password for you, so your data goes directly into the correct place in the FEMA site here. They can also set you up into a training site. So if you need to do training and you don't want to create real incidents, they have a training site that's available that you can get into as well. So talk to them about that too. Now we're going to go grab this PDF document that I was mentioning, and we're going to kind of step through. There's a few screenshots in here. So after you get logged into that particular web page, if you're needing to import your incidents, there's an import incidents link under incident management. Scroll down here a little bit. There's a bulk import utility. Now you do have to put some information into that. Now the email address in here is for a South Carolina person at the fire marshal's office there, I believe. Couple things that they point out to you. You want to select yes for accepting invalid incidents and yes for overwriting existing incidents, and then grab your file, choose it, and upload it. And I think there's a limit of 3 files at a time, or you can actually upload zipped documents here. No, they'll have some instructions in this document for you. After you upload the file here, you can select to import them, and your data is uploaded. And this is kind of what it's going to look like right here. And one of the things that the boss wanted us to talk about is the ability through their system here, you can download a document that will show you if you have warnings or critical errors in it. I'm just going to slide down a bit and show you a screenshot. This is what it looks like. So it's going to download it into a Excel spreadsheet, and there's a column over here for your errors. If it comes up as a warning in this column, you don't have to fix it. They want you to take a look at it to learn from it, but you don't have to fix it. If it mentions that it's a critical error, then you have to fix that and resubmit the incident to them. And that is the end of the presentation. Let's go ahead and get this wrapped up, guys. Any other follow-ups we need to do with questions?
Mark, there was a good question from Jesse, and of course, me being the city guy I am, it deals with wildland, so it's kind of out of my wheelhouse. What he says is, for entering information on cause of fire in the wildland module, I oftentimes have incomplete information at the time of call entry, as the investigation may be ongoing. I don't see any cause unknown selections. Is there a better way to enter wildland fire without having all the specifics of ignition source or human factors?
No, and I don't think so. Now you're talking about using, and I do not have it on this particular account. I did, but I had to turn it off. So if we go into the incident, let me go ahead and just generate a new incident. And put in a wildland fire type, like a 141 incident type. Then basically you're getting this page, I would believe, or yeah, maybe I do have this in here. So this is the information that he is needing. The answer I have is no. I don't believe there is. This list comes directly from the National Association of State Forwarders. It's called IRWIN, actually, and we're looking at statistical causes and a lot of information in here. If you don't have that information, yeah, I mean, it's going to give you a red light. There's minimum required fields in here. You get all that data put in, you could authorize it. One thing that's important to know, if you're in North Dakota or Wyoming and you're looking at this as your fire report because you have that wildland incident, when you review the incident, it automatically gets sent to your State Department of Forestry. It's called an IRWIN export. That's automatic. So basically, I think the answer is you won't be able to review it to submit it until you get all that information. And again, all the fields in here come from a coding list that they have. We didn't make this stuff up. We picked it right off of their list and entered it in here. And yeah, there is no statistical cause. There is no unknown here. Now,
And Jesse, one thing,
I'm a firefighter, so I'm going to select miscellaneous. Okay.
And just to add to, above and beyond the National Association of State Foresters, that same thing applies for the NFIRS wildland module fields as well. It's not going to let you complete it until you address the human factors on that on page 1 of the wildfire module. So just a heads up then.
That's the one I had turned off in this particular account, was that one, the NFIRS wildland module, because I have the IRWIN module turned on.
Yeah, so it applies to both. In case you were thinking of the other one as well, it's going to apply to both. There's just no way around it until you have the responses to the required fields.
Perfect, thank you. Anything else out there that we need to follow up on?
We'll do this one offline because it's not directly related to NFIRS, but Doug has a great question and I need to research because I know about this report. Report 1718. It may refer to a custom question, but 1718 shows fires with hose deployment and water used. Where in the incident report do you put that information in? I know the answer. I just got to do a little quick research on it. So Doug, shoot me an email and I'll get you that answer and CC the team, because that one, Peoria, Illinois uses that one, and there is a certain nuance that you have to do for it to capture it, and I'll be able to tell you that. I gotta research it real quick. Unless anybody online knows the answer.
I believe the answer in this particular case is custom question.
Yeah, I'll find out, and then I'll shoot you a response, Doug, and CC the team, because that one's a tricky one. I've had it asked before, and I just don't have it in my memory right now.
Okay, thanks a lot. Anything else out there, guys, in the questions? I'm not monitoring them at all.
Super user Sean Sims is on. I can tell you that, from Pennsylvania. And you're right, that question from Doug. I think he's asked it in the community forum, but if he hasn't, that is a good question to be asked there.
Okay, perfect. Anything else, guys? Going once, going twice. Thanks everybody for attending. We appreciate it. And we'll be talking to you next month at the second presentation for Virtual Thursday.
Oh no, we have a special one next week.
Oh yes, that's right. We are doing a special presentation next week that will be advertised in mere moments at the top of your homepage.
So right. Stand by for that one. And Mark, outstanding job today. Thank you.